Good evening. Welcome to another episode of the DMV Daily Radio Show. I'm your host, Hassan Giordano, a.k.a. Wolfman Jack today. I ain't even Mr. Politics today. I'm roughing it right now. I ain't even get a chance to get to the barber. Y'all got me so busy. But today we have a tremendous program in store for you as we have the candidates vying to be the next chair of the Baltimore City Democratic State Central Committee. And we will give you a chance to ask them questions or raise the concerns that are important to you. But before we get into that program, as always, I got to let you know that this program is brought to you by our fine sponsors, such as that stellar legal team known as the Bates & Garcia Law Firm, specializing in criminal defense, real estate, and bodily injury cases. Bates & Garcia is Maryland's legal dream team. So make sure you contact Tim today for your free consultation. 410-814-4600 is the number. Make sure you let them know the DMV Daily referred you, and they'll give you the special homeboy discount.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. I think this guy right here knows a little something about that firm. Huh?
Yeah, just a little.
You and some other guy, Tony Garcia.
He's going by the name Ebony here lately, but that's a whole nother story.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, that is a long story. Tony, we're going to have to talk. This show is also brought to you by that savvy political strategist team known as Politicom Strategic Solutions, who have mastered the art of political communications and successfully gotten people elected to office since the 1970s. If you're looking to run for office in 2020, make sure you give them a call today to get your campaign set up with a user-friendly website, integrated social media sites, campaign plan, and more. They can be reached 240-242-7505 or on the web, politicomsolutions.com. Speaking of Politicom, we're going to have one of their clients, I think, is coming on tomorrow. We're going to start talking about these city council races and the mayoral race that's starting to heat up now. Of course, the deadline to file your campaign finance reports is tomorrow. One of their clients, I think, the first-time candidate, raised almost $20,000 in 2 months. So they'll be on here talking about why they're running for city council. I think we'll have another candidate from another district on Friday, and we'll continuously talk about these races all across the city so you are informed way ahead of time. Now, of course, DMV Daily is also producing our very own live stream radio programs and podcasts, such as Value My Vote 2020. We'll be talking about and sitting down with each and every candidate running for mayor on down, one-on-one via video podcast. You definitely want to pay attention to that. Of course, the Annapolis Report, if you haven't listened to it already, make sure you go check it out right there on DMVDaily.news. I break down all the inner workings of the current 90-day legislative session in the Maryland General Assembly. Go to DMVDaily.news to catch that. You can also hear portions of that report every Tuesday morning from 7:15 to 7:30 a.m. on the Larry Young Morning Show, WOLB 1010 a.m. I'll actually be there tomorrow morning from 8 to 9 a.m. as we go live to discuss the part 2 of the upcoming session that you heard us last week, the issues that you can come to expect. Tomorrow, of course, is the swearing in of our governor and lieutenant governor. Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush will be there introducing our governor. So much more we'll get into on the Larry Young Morning Show tomorrow morning, 8 to 9 a.m. Now, if you want your own live stream radio show or podcast like the DMV Daily radio program or the Annapolis Report, if you want to have to discuss a topic that's important to you, weekly or even daily for an hour or 2 hours, make sure you contact DMV Daily today. 443-294-3900 is the number, or simply just go to the website, fill out the form, provided for you on the website. Somebody get back to you within a day or two. Trust and believe you're going to want to be on it, especially once we launch Law and Disorder with Ivan Bates. That's going to be a weekly podcast that's going to become a national phenomenon. I'm telling you what, I said it right here, right now. They're going to be talking about all things legal, state level, federal level, issues that we talk about all the time. That's going to be an interesting podcast you certainly don't want to miss, but bring your own podcast on to the podcast network as well. Now, of course, you can always listen to this program each and every day. iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Play. Watch us, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Periscope. I know some of y'all are watching us on Facebook now. If you want to join in today's conversation, you can call in or text your question or comment to the studio phone lines, 819-2370 is the number. Again, 410-819-2370. If you got a question or comment for our candidates here today, you want to talk about some of the issues that are pressing here in the city of Baltimore, make sure you do it. Or go to our Facebook page at DMV Daily News, Periscope page, Twitter page, all that good stuff. But, of course, we're always watching our Facebook Live page. We see you, Shane Bryan, Donovan Hatcher, Lisa Mills, Sean Stinnett, all the whole Stinnett family's on here. That's what I'm talking about. We're going to break down today, of course, a very hot topic, an interesting topic, I know to many of y'all, and so we want to hear from you as well. Today, of course, as I announced, we are joined in the studio by two of the four candidates that are running to be the next chair of the city's Democratic State Central Committee. Now, as you know from listening to this program or reading the articles from DMVDaily.news, that the former chairman, Ben Smith, recently resigned his position to become the executive director of the Maryland Democratic Party. Now, under the leadership, of course, our good friend here, DMV Daily's national political analyst, Maya Rockemore Cummins. This left an opening for the all-important chairman position. And we have witnessed four members sign up to put their names in a hat to become the next chair of the Democratic State Central Committee here in the city of Baltimore. Now, we reached out to all four of them. Mind you, wasn't very long notice as usual. Usually I'm very prepared and we're doing this days and weeks in advance. I actually invited them yesterday, as Karenthia reminded me. I thought it was this weekend. My days just get blurred in. But it was yesterday. And these two young ladies made time just like that to be with you on the program today. Alex Garcia, another candidate, did express within minutes of the invitation that he was not going to be able to make it due to a prior engagement. But I have not heard from the fourth candidate. So here we are today. Now, we have two individuals who are here today, four individuals total that'll be running. The current first vice chair of the Central Committee and the acting chairwoman right now of the Democratic State Central Committee is to my left, Ms. Karenthia Barber of the 43rd District. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. And thank you for this opportunity.
Not a problem. Thanks for coming in on short notice, joining us and the family for this important, it's not a debate, it's a forum. We want to talk conversation. We always got to debate in order to get our points across. All right. Another young lady who is joining us over here to my right is from the 40th Legislative District. I'm not going to hold that against you. I'm a 43rd representative all day long, but I used to live in the 40th, so I ain't mad at you. She actually ran last time against Ben Smith, and I got a question for you later on about that, too. I feel some kind of way about it, so we're going to talk about that. But anyway, I'm talking about none other than the young lady, Monica Cooper. How you doing?
I'm fine, and thanks again for having me. Like Ms. Barber said, thank you.
Not a problem.
Thanks for the opportunity to address the public.
Not a problem. Thank y'all for coming here, being a part of this. Of course, as I said earlier, the 43rd District also has another representative, Alex Garcia, who has put his name in the hat. Again, he said he was not able to be here today. And then, of course, the fourth person is Miss Jasmine Collins, who is apparently a neighborhood liaison for the mayor's office from the 45th Legislative District. We have not received any word back in regards to her reply at all about being on the program. So who we are, and the guy next to me, of course, he ain't running for Central Committee. He's running for state's attorney a couple years. Tell me why.
No comment.
I thought he was running for mayor.
Nah. Right now, the only thing I'm doing is being a lawyer. I'm going to court every day representing people. That's all I know.
I looked at campaign finance today when I was looking at everybody else's just to see how much money, because I said maybe he might do an okie doke and run for mayor on us real quick.
Nah.
So I had to make sure you wasn't stacking up dough quietly on us.
No.
Of course, that's Ivan Bates for all y'all who don't know. I don't know what world you've been living under, what rock you've been living under.
How you doing, people?
I don't think Dr. Lana Bates is going to go for that.
No, you're right. Dr. Lana Bates says hubby will be at home helping take care of the baby and working. So I'm doing the radio. I'm enjoying this right now with you.
Absolutely. I'm telling you, we having fun we didn't, and I don't want to get sidetracked, but September, sat there, called and said, look, we want to start this radio show. and Ivan was down, and Mark and Jason, and we were like, all right, we threw it together. Came on Radio 1 October 1st. It feels like it was like a year and a half ago. It's been so long.
Yeah.
But it was really only October 1st. Built a great following over there at Radio 1. Then we had to branch out and do our own thing, get our own studios, and where we are now. But, you know, it's a job in essence because, you know, people, unless you got a loving family who understands that every night you're not coming home from work, you're coming to the studio first, then going. You know, it sometimes is a little overwhelming, but nonetheless, it's fun.
Yes.
And we bring a lot of good information.
I mean, like tonight. I mean, you know, I feel this program here is very needed because there are a lot of people out there who don't understand the Democratic Central Committee, who you are and what you do. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, the last program we had just Friday, besides yesterday, Friday with Karen York.
Yes.
Thousands of views, over 100 some shares on Facebook. People that I've seen, even at work downtown, really enjoyed it because it was a sense of importance and education. They felt like the criminal justice system was better explained. Some of the things that we discussed, especially what Karen laid out, and that you two went back and forth on criminal justice matters, people really learned a lot. And to me, that's the biggest thing. You know, if we can offer up something that people can learn on a daily basis about things they didn't know about, that's all you can ask for. This ain't right-wing conservative talk. We ain't going to sit here and just talk till we're blue in the face just to have something to say with like some of these other idiots. We try to educate but have fun at the same time. I ain't heard nobody who said they came on this show and didn't have fun.
Yep.
So y'all might as well lay back. This ain't you ain't got to be all
no need to be uptight.
I mean, the people watching, they ain't they listening. They just want to know who you are. That's it.
Yeah.
They ain't got no horse in this race. They can't even vote. So you got some of your colleagues that are watching that they can vote, but they just want to know who you are, what the Central Committee stands for from your standpoint. And so let's get right into it. And we'll start with Ms. Karenthia. First question would be, and it's going to go to both of y'all. Who are you to the family, and why do you want to be the chair of the Central Committee, and what qualifies you to serve in this position?
Okay. Who am I? I am a leader, advocate, and community servant. I have been serving the communities of Baltimore since I was a young child, actually. I'm the youngest of 7, raised in East Baltimore. And my parents instilled in all of us a sense of civic responsibility. So I remember going to community association meetings with my mother as a child, working the polls with her, serving food at homeless shelters. So that's just a part of who I am. And as I've gotten older, I have found many opportunities where there was a need in the community, and I stepped up to serve. I am the past president of the Etna Gardens Lakeside Civic Association, where I served nearly 10 years, not because I intended to, but because my neighbors wanted me to, and there was a need. I bring to the chair position a proven track record of leadership, not only in community organizations, but I was the first woman elected to chair the board of the Maryland Automobile Insurance Fund. I have been recognized by Leadership Maryland for my leadership and volunteerism throughout the city as well as the state. I have served on numerous boards and commissions, and that experience informs my leadership style. In addition to that, I have a broad network that runs deep and wide, both locally, statewide, and nationally, that can be used and has been used as a resource for the Central Committee. I am all things community, and as a result of that, I bring a level of institutional knowledge regarding not only the Maryland Democratic Party and the Democratic State Central Committee of Baltimore City, but the national DNC, of which I have been active in as well. So I think all of those things combined positions me to lead our Central Committee forward to do greater things, to positively impact more people. And you talked about education, Hassan, and that's one of the pillars that I stand on in terms of service. I truly believe that when we educate and empower people, then they will be more engaged and be able to actively advocate for those things that we need in our communities. Thank you.
All right, now. So, Miss Monica Cooper, who are you? Why do you want to be chair, and what qualifies you to be chair?
Well, my name's Monica Cooper. I am from Sandtown, West Baltimore. And who am I? I am a woman that wears several hats currently. I am a civil servant worker for our lovely city, Baltimore. I am the founder of a nonprofit organization that works with women and girls incarcerated, formerly incarcerated. And I'm on a Democratic State Central Committee. And I ran in the 40th, and and here I am. One of the things that I think that qualify me, and one of the reasons why I think that people elected me, is because people in the community know me. Not the politicians, not the people that belong to the clubs, not the people that, that's been groomed and that's been working their way up to possible delegations or senatorials or mayoral or councilmatic. I'm not that person. I am, to me, the epitome of what the State Central Committee is. The State Central Committee, just like Sister said, is community. It's not politicians. And it's not people who are seeking to become politicians or to add something to their resumes. I have no previous background in running for any political offices, but what I do is I know the people, and the people know me. And that, to me, was the establishment of the State Central Committee, so that people who are been working in their communities as community association presidents and, the Boy Scout den mother, people who run nonprofits, and people who work with the disenfranchised folks, the people who don't vote. That's what it was created for. So for me, that's the representation that I want to see, and that's the representation that I am, to bring people into the party, because our communities, our districts look different. On one side of the district, it's nice and clean and no broken windows, no abandoned houses. And on the other side of the district, you have, houses dilapidated, but it's all in one district. So in my mind, how do we get our districts to look the same all the way around? Because you got a rolling park in the district, but you also have, some houses on this side. You've got Canton on one side, but 4 or 5 blocks over, you have another community. So my objective for the next 3 years is at least to help continue to get the state center, the Baltimore City State Central Committee, recognized in the communities and recognized for being representatives of them. And it seems all too much that politicians don't represent the people. But I gotta agree, with my sister over there, because to be honest with you, if it's not me, then why not let it be her? Let it be somebody who the people can trust, that have their best interests at heart. These gentrified communities and these different things that's going on, they continue to go on because the people are not fully making sure that everybody in a community is represented. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you got 70,000 people in the 41st district, it is to some people's advantage that only 7,000 of them voted. They don't want them to vote, because if all 70,000 of those people's vote, it might thwart those efforts and those things that they're trying to do. So they really don't want them to vote. So I want people to wake up and know that this Central Committee is supposed to be in that 41st district, getting all 70,000 of them to vote. Period.
Okay.
All right, now. I want to let y'all know, if y'all want to call in, because I got a whole list of questions. I can go on and on and on. Don't get it twisted. But we want to make sure that y'all get involved as well. So make sure you can give us a call. 410-819-2370 is the number. You can also text in your question to that number, or just throw up your question if you're listening to us currently, watching us on the Facebook Live feed. Make sure to put in your question or comment right there as well. You got it.
Yeah, I do. First of all, I want to sit down and just say, hey, thank you very much to both you ladies stepping out there to lead the organization. Let's say you win. What will be one of the top 3 priorities on your agenda during your term in office? And I'd like to start with you first.
Okay. Well, one of the top 3 agendas that I think that I would have on my agenda and should be on our agenda, period, is getting young people registered to vote. If you're 16 years old, we should be in every single school, especially in the areas like in the 40th, where people are not coming out to vote like they should. We should be at connections. We should be at all of the schools, registering the 16-year-olds to vote. Once we register them to vote, get them continuously involved to make sure that they get to the poll. Because one thing about voting, once you do it that first time, you feel a part of it. You are most likely to keep going, especially if people keep you engaged. The other thing that I think is that we need to do some fundraising. We need to raise money so that the State Central Committee can be a strong, viable entity. We should be having different events, bringing people in. We should be bringing in speakers that we might be able to pay a few bucks to come in and talk about. They have people who have who have made mistakes in their past, who have ran for elected offices all across the country. Bring those folks in so that people will know that even if you've made a mistake in your past, you can still be a civic-minded, changed person. You're still a citizen, and you reserve your rights as a citizen to run for office. You reserve your rights as a citizen to vote. Just in Florida, they just reinstituted convicted felons the right to vote.
Yes,
so this movement is going on all across the country that people are saying, even if you have made a mistake in your past, that you too can run for office. In fact, to be honest with you, that's one of the reasons why I ran, is because I've had, some things in my past that I thought might hold me back. And I kind of got out of that mindset to say, hey, just because I made a mistake doesn't mean that I need to be unemployed and homeless.
Yes.
I deserve a right to work like everybody else. I can go and do the same things that everybody else did. So I threw my hat in the ring, because all of the people who used to be 912-878, I want all of those people to know that you can be a part of this process, setting an example to all of those people who have had that experience. So the second thing I would do is to raise money so that we can start having events to bring people in. And the third thing that I would probably do is I would start changing some of the bylaws.
Okay.
To maybe consider whether or not we need elected officials to be on the State Central Committee. I would start really re-examine the bylaws and how we make these bylaws functional and really make them work instead of just being, I would go in and we would review them.
Okay.
So those are the first 3 things I would do.
Thank you.
Okay, the first thing that I would do is education and training, which is aligned with the priorities of our new state party chair, Dr. Maya Rocky Moore Cummings. And I support that because there are members who have been elected to the State Central Committee who really aren't clear about their role and responsibilities. So we need to help our members understand what they really have been elected to do. In addition to that, the goal would be to build capacity. Currently, in any organization, the work happens in committees. And unfortunately, since the new Central Committee has been elected, with the exception of the committee my sister here chairs, our voter engagement committee, our other committees have not been functioning. So my goal would be to appoint capable chairs for those committees, convene a meeting of committee chairs so that we can be sure everyone understands where we are, where we're trying to go, and what needs to happen to get us there. So first, education and training, building capacity, and then I'd like to work on developing strategic partnerships. There are many organizations in our community who work on voter registration, voter education, and even get out the vote efforts. But we're all fragmented and working in silos. So building those strategic partnerships with labor, community organizations, and other groups that are doing the same or similar work can help us build capacity. And in that effort, I'd like for us to develop a regional approach to voter engagement, working with Baltimore County, Harford County, Howard County, because, this last election showed us that what we could have done had we all worked together with more resources, more foot soldiers, we would have been able to deliver more. So those would be my priorities.
Okay, thank you.
Speaking of amending bylaws, it's interesting because I'm watching a conversation on Facebook between our co-host Mark McLaren, who is now an at-large member of the Central Committee, as well as Nick, who's also, I think, an at-large member over
Nick,
in the 46th
district. Yes.
And for those who are watching or listening and don't understand what at-large is, basically you have 7 members of every legislative district here in the city of Baltimore that are elected by the people to serve in the Central Committee role. And then they have what's called gender balance, meaning the 43rd district. All right, we're going to get to the callers in 1 second. In the 43rd district, y'all had all women almost, except one man.
Yes.
So just last night you were telling me that you had to appoint a few more. Five men to serve in gender balance because that's what was written into the bylaws of the Maryland Democratic Party.
No, actually, that's a DNC requirement.
That was handed down by the National Democratic Party.
Yes, the National Democratic Party mandates that in a presidential election cycle, there must be gender balance on the central committees. Most jurisdictions in Maryland do that at the ballot. Baltimore City does not, but we will all be required to do it at the ballot during the next gubernatorial cycle.
Okay. Oh, that's good. And so, but their question was kind of debating on why, as at-large members, they were not allowed to vote in tomorrow night's election. And I can tell you, Mark, that didn't happen. The last election, at-large members did not vote last year. It was only the 42 members that I remember voting. And the bylaws do state in
there's a
Article
reason
2.
the gender balance members didn't vote because that was right after the election.
And they weren't
so
even.
they hadn't been appointed.
But according to your bylaws, Section 2, Article 2, Section 5, Section B says that of at-large members are allowed to vote on Central Committee business, but are not eligible to vote to fill Central Committee positions, elected official vacancies, or recommendations to boards and commissions. So their kind of question is, are they even going to be able to vote tomorrow night for the election for chairman?
I think Sister might know more about that, but one thing I would add, and because I am new, and definitely the bylaws kind of spells it out, and we can consider, like I said, we should consider looking at our bylaws anyway, concerning whether elected officials should be on the state central committee and maybe some other things. But to me, in my opinion, at-large members should not be able to vote because they weren't duly elected by the people. So it's one thing to have 3 people or 7 people vote you in, but it's another thing to have 5,000 vote you in. So that should make a difference, is that, being duly elected by the people and being able to actually run a campaign, go around, do whatever it is. But getting 5,000 votes, which I almost did, next to John Bullock, almost kicked him in the teeth. But being duly elected, being duly. Yeah.
I got to kick him in his teeth.
I'm from Sandtown, brother. Come on now.
You know what it is?
I'm a little rough around the edges. I'm a little bit polished. I'm genuine. I'm a genuine article, but that's what it is. But it's different, Mark, and whoever might be curious, it's different to me. And I would always vote against that if we had to say, well, at-large members. I can understand the state central committee, but you didn't earn that vote necessarily from the people.
Right.
So I would say that, the bylaws is what it is, yeah.
So what do you think? You think you would stick with the bylaws?
It really doesn't matter what I think. It matters what the bylaws, the parameters that have been established by our bylaws.
Right.
And Mark and Nick could both tell you that I called them, as I called every member, asking for their support, because that was something that I frankly had forgotten about. Prior to the revision of these bylaws, our gender balance members were not allowed to vote on anything, not even business matters.
So what were they there for, the show?
So the way that the state party looks at gender balance members is that they are installed as members of the state party, not the local jurisdictions. So that's why there had not been any opportunity previously in Baltimore City for gender balance members to vote on anything.
That's interesting. See, I'm telling you, not only y'all learning, we learning too.
learning right
and I
here.
got the bylaws right in front of me, and I'm still learning. All right, we got 2 callers on the line. We want to make sure we bring them into the conversation as well, to get their opinion on it. And hopefully, Nick and Mark, your questions were answered in regards to whether you'll be able to vote in tomorrow night's election. Caller, you're on the line. Welcome to the DMV Daily Show.
Hey, Hassan, it's Richard.
Hey, Richard.
Hey, Richard.
Hello, everybody. I have a couple of questions for the candidates for chair. The first one is, what do you plan to do during the legislative session to help average citizens connect with the legislature?
I'd like to take a stab at it. Is that and because I am fresh and new at it, one of the things I understand is that our role as a state central committee is basically to bring in registered voters. Our basic role is to bring in registered voters to the party. And I believe that we could operate as a liaison of sorts to the legislators especially in our district, to kind of bring some of those concerns of the residents and the community to that person. But I always want to be mindful of not to overstep what my role is on the state central committee. But I do believe if there's an opportunity to expand our role, that would be a good thing to bring the people in the districts closer to their legislators, because sometimes, unfortunately, people complain that they call them in Annapolis, they don't get a phone call, they send them emails in Annapolis because it's really busy. We only have 90 days. And when that 90 days take off, it flies, and people are very busy. And sometimes you got to check your leadership and say, hey, man, look, when the session is over, you can at least start meeting with people, talking to people. But during the session, I know it's really difficult. Those things generally happen prior to the session, so people will know what the platform is for the 40th or what the platform is for the 45th, and the community has a chance to kind of chime in. But I think it's a good question, and one thing that we could do to kind of expand our role a little bit. But I know off the top that our main role is to bring in registered voters.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Thank you, Richard, for the question. As you may be aware, right before the beginning of session, the senators had a town hall meeting at Coppin State University where the public was invited to share what their concerns were. So I was there along with other members of the Central Committee. So keeping ourselves informed of what's going on. When I talked about strategic partnerships, that also included strengthening those ties with our local delegation. And it also ties into my other goal of building capacity. So when we have strong district chairs and strong committee chairs, then we have a stronger line of communication where, for example, every senator and delegate has a newsletter. Well, when we get those, we shouldn't just read it and delete it. We should be sharing that with our networks and with our communities. So helping to facilitate that process with our members, to strengthening the down sharing or output of information throughout the community.
Okay, I asked primarily because the Prince George's Democratic Central Committee, during the general election, they endorsed ballot referendums, implying that they can have a role as a policy advocacy arm. And if you were to be the chair of the Baltimore City Democratic Central Committee, would there be any legislation that you would try and get the Central Committee to endorse? For instance, the $15 minimum wage is probably one of the hottest bills right now. And I think that this is the first opportunity to pass it. That would be a very good role for the Democratic Party as a whole, but particularly the Central Committees. Do either of you have a comment on that?
Well, as my sister here, Monica, indicated, that really is not within the purview of the Central Committee. I personally support that. Actually, going back to when we were advocating for 1010, I was part of the Women for 1010 movement. So that is something, our role really is to advocate with our legislators so that they can do that on our behalf.
Okay, and my final question is,
Go ahead.
what do you all plan to do during the 2020 city council / presidential race to raise awareness and give forums for discussion and debate among candidates?
I'd like to take a stab at that, but as I mentioned earlier, whether it's me or whether it's my sister that leads Baltimore City, that's one of the things that I'm going to push for, is that we do fundraisers, and the fundraisers will allow us to do that outreach that my sister talked about, being able to do outreach and encourage people to come out and vote, because that is our role. So as we go into 2020, we want to try to get as many people out there to vote as possible. So we will be doing outreach and different events and outings and things like that. That's what I'm going to suggest that we do as a central committee.
Absolutely. My perspective is voter education and registration is an ongoing process. We don't wait until a month before the registration deadline. So I envision that we will have teams of members going into every high school, meeting with students who are 16 years old and above, not only getting them to complete an application or voter registration application, but holding civics lessons, sessions with the students, helping them to understand how their lives are impacted by the electoral process. I have worked for a number of years now with the scholars at Bluford Drew Jemison, as well as Boys Hope, Girls Hope. And I sit down with them, help them to understand, that things like, scholarships and the schools you go to and the neighborhoods you live in and the resources available to your families are all directly related to who gets elected to office. So getting those young people, I believe in a multi-generational approach. So working with the young people, working with the people in the communities, those on the corners who are not connected, as Monica said, to the organizations. One election cycle, I actually chartered a motor coach, and a team of folks and I went around to different neighborhoods, and I had the bus driver stop whenever we saw people gathered on the corner in the park and got out and talked to them. And that was that was right after the law changed in Maryland, restoring rights to former felons. And there were so many people who didn't even know that they had the right to vote.
Still don't.
And still don't. We have not done a good job in the state of Maryland educating people on that. So that would be an effort that would need to, tomorrow's the election. That I would want to see starting next week. And going into schools, going into the senior centers, because we assume the seniors know all the issues that impact them. And, I've learned from going to the Eating Together program in the Doefield community that there are some seniors who are not registered to vote. So we have to capture everyone. And that's something that we need to start now, because 2020 is right around the corner.
That it is. Thank you for your call, Richard. As always.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Very good answers. Both of you take care. Bye-bye.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Yeah, another caller? Good evening, caller. You're on with the DMV Daily Show.
Hello.
Hello,
What's
Mark.
up?
Hi, Mark.
I'm so glad I guess even though I can't vote, I can speak. Here I am.
Speak on, brother.
So a couple of points of clarification that I really needed to make, and I know that that Hassan read the applicable portion of the bylaws that seems to at least indicate that at-larges aren't supposed to vote in internal elections, but the minutes reflect that at-large members voted for Mike Ball for treasurer. So how did that happen?
Oh, he had a separate election?
Yeah.
I don't recall that, and I've gone to every one of our monthly meetings, and when we had elections, those people who voted in our elections, they were only state central committee members. Now, I can't speak to what may have happened in their particular district. If he's
No.
treasurer
Mike,
for the
I guess what I'm referring to is there was a vacancy for treasurer, just like there's a vacancy for chair.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike Ball was elected to that position as treasurer before he was elected in the first for a full term just this past year. But the way he got to be treasurer was through an election because there was a vacancy. And the minutes reflect that at-large members voted in that election.
And
So
as
I'd
I'm
like someone to tell me what the difference is between that election and this election.
As I'm recalling, Mark, he was appointed. He was not elected
That's not what the minutes say.
because
But
our bylaws allow for the chair to, if there's a vacancy of the treasurer, and I think there's a certain period of time.
Within 1 year before the election,
Yes.
they are appointed and they're not elected because
But
they
that
don't want to
wasn't
do it.
within 1 year. That's what I'm trying
did he
what
get
I'm
a-
trying to
when
tell
did he
you is
get
that
into the position?
We can look at it. Say that again?
When did he get into the position of treasurer? December of 2017, right?
No. That was when he was elected to a full term.
No.
He was
No.
treasurer when he got reelected, but he was appointed, I believe, in early 16. But I'll look it back up. I'll bring the minutes with me tomorrow.
Okay.
So here's kind of the challenge that I have here. And Monica, sister, I hear you when you say that, because these folks weren't elected, then they really shouldn't get a chance to vote, which makes sense to a certain extent. I mean, I certainly don't think that at-large members should get to vote for vacancies in the Senate or the House of Delegates, because those are folks that are elected by the voters, and so they should be replaced by people elected by the voters. There's a continuity in thinking there that makes sense. But in terms of who should govern a body that they're sitting as members of, let's remember the history of gender-balanced folks. Gender-balanced folks were introduced into the process because there were too many daggone men in leadership. There weren't enough women in leadership in the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party said, enough of these male-dominated, smoke-filled back rooms. We're going to open up this process, and so if there aren't enough women elected, we will appoint them, and they will serve alongside of the men, and they will be members along with them. So with the distinction of not being able to vote to fill a vacancy in the Senate and the House of Delegates, other than that, women never would have put up with this. There's too many men, so we're going to put more women in the room. But women, you're not allowed to vote on anything. You just sit there because now we have equal representation. That can't be the governing rationale for why these folks are there. And so then the question becomes, for me at least, if you put somebody as a member of a body, can you give me one other example in Robert's Rules or any parliamentary procedure anywhere in the country where a person sits as a member of a body but they don't get a vote as to who leads them?
Well, I can't really speak to that, but what I can do is refer you back to the policies and refer you back to what's governing us. Now, if
They're
if
not
there,
really
if
clear.
there is,
That's the problem.
and if there's a way that we can revisit, because like I said, I really want us to revisit the bylaws, and if it's something that's handed down from the national party or from the state party, then it may be something that you have to take up with them. Because if it's a policy on a state or national level, then you got to look at state and national level and try to fix it there.
Well, this is part of the challenge, is that the bylaws aren't clear, especially the city bylaws. They're horribly written. So there are several places where it's not really clear what's meant by who's allowed to do what. And then it becomes the will of the body. And I plan to put this matter fully before the body tomorrow and ask them, do they think it's fair that people who serve beside them, who are expected to fulfill each and every responsibility that the elected members do, still when it comes time to vote for who should lead them, who should preside over their meetings, who should be the head of the organization, that we're expected to sit silent and still do the work anyway. That's not the way to open up the process. That's not the way to get new people in. If there's not going to be an opportunity for new people to assume leadership, then do away with the gender balance and just have the 7 in each district. I could respect that more than asking people to go through an application process and then at the end tell them that they don't really have any say in the body that they're serving in.
Well, I can definitely tell you this, Mark. While I agree they need to hire somebody like me to rewrite this, because whoever wrote this stuff that they got on their website, and I got it in front of me, clearly did not major in grammar, English, or anything of the sort.
They're horrible.
Now, I read it and interpret it in such a way that, you know, that they're not able to vote now. And I hear what you're saying. I honestly think we need to get rid of the gender balance, period. I understood what it meant back in the day, but now look at the 43rd. You have five women or 6 women and 1 man. It's not as if you need that these days. You're having more women that are elected. Even in the legislatures, there's more women being represented in the past.
That's still not true.
Listen, on the Central Committee, I'm saying, I heard women on Facebook, on your Central Committee. No. I'm not talking about Senate. I'm talking about Central Committee.
That's where the real power is. Let's be honest.
Right.
Okay?
And I'm not saying take that away from, but they ain't got no gender balance in Annapolis. You can't say, well, you elected 3 male or 3 females.
You know why? There's no gender balance because it would be unconstitutional. But the Democratic Party...
Oh, but it's not unconstitutional in this?
The Democratic Party holds as a core value that there ought to be equal representation. And so that's why it's that way.
And
you
that
couldn't do it in Annapolis,
lunacy.
You probably should. In fact, Annapolis should probably be 75% women, 25% men.
Well, it's getting there.
On the other side.
It's on its way there. If you look at these past elections, women have been dominating at the polls. And God,
but they're not close to even a majority, Hassan. I think you're imagining.
No.
They're not even anywhere close.
I didn't say they were close.
I mean, sure,
Here you go. And I never said they were close.
Can I just say
they
that
have more women serving right now in the legislature than any time in the history. I was just talking to Maggie McIntosh about this earlier today. Right, they're making great strides, but in this case, there are women on the Central Committee who are upset about the gender balance because they're like, hold on, now you want to appoint men when we've been trying to fight for years to be a part of this. Now we got a dominance, and you want to make sure that they're equal members. So it goes both ways.
Can I make a comment? Can I please?
They said it on Facebook. I'm not speaking for them. I reiterate what they said.
Well, as a woman. As a woman, and as I see that the state central committee is dominated by women, it's in most places they had to elect 4 and 5. They had to vote in 4 and 5 men, and to me, why do we have to appoint men now? Why can't we just say, okay, women are finally in charge and leave it at that? And when you think about it, it subverts the will of the people. If the people wanted to elect 10 people, they would have it. It's 7 spaces, and the people decided who those 7 people were. It was plenty of men that they could have chose, but they didn't. They chose women. So why not just get rid of it? That might be a possibility. Just get rid of it.
Just get rid of it. That's what I say. Get rid of the whole thing.
I guess the problem is the pendulum swings one way one time. So then let's say we get rid of it now. Then 20 years from now, all of a sudden you have all men. You know, it's all men. And then what happens? And then you'll sit down and say, we got to have gender balance. You know?
You had to appoint a woman because it was majority men. In this very election.
I mean, you know, again, if it's the will of the people.
I mean, the will of the people.
If it's 20 people that run, 10 men and 10 women, and 10 women get voted, obviously that's what the people want to vote for.
Pretty much.
It's not a level playing field, Monica. That's not how any
my goodness. Here we go again. Here's my question.
Okay, you might be right,
This is
Mark.
what burns me up more than anything in the whole wide world. Please, will y'all answer this? What's y'all position on this? Elected officials, and I can sit here and name the ones who are on y'all central committee now that are elected, that serve dual roles in elected office and on the state central committee, in my opinion, taking up a seat that could be done for somebody who's not elected.
I have
What's y'all
problems with
position? What's y'all positions on that? And can we change it if you're the chair?
So you're going to cost us some votes tomorrow.
Well,
That's the problem. They don't want to. They don't want to. They
know,
here's the
look.
other
No,
question.
I'm gonna respond, Mark. I think that having elected officials as part of the central committee takes away space from a grassroots neighborhood person who could be involved in the process.
Okay.
And so, and I think those who are on the central committee know how I feel about it. It's not a surprise.
Well,
Okay, so
I
you'd be in
actually
favor of
had,
amending the bylaws to mirror like Montgomery
Montgomery
where you're
County,
not allowed
yes.
to, as an elected official, to sit on the central committee.
Yes.
And I actually had,
Okay.
I kind of led with that. Like that would be one of the things that we would look at. And it is, to me, it's a few pretty good elected officials, the guys that I like, people that I like their work. I like their work in Annapolis. I like their work, councilmatic work. I like the work that they're doing. But I do kind of feel the same way. Now, it would be different if their role benefited the central committee in some way, but because they're really busy doing councilmatic work or doing delegate work or doing senatorial work or whatever it is, then it's hard for them to focus on this. Because if they were able to lend, their powers and their prowess to the work that we're doing, it would be a great marriage because they have connections. They know people. If we say that we want a room in Annapolis, let's get us a room down there, and we want to invite all of these people. We got a busload of people that we want to bring down there, and we just want to walk them around, show them to their legislators, show them how this process works, let them sit in on a hearing. If you did stuff like that, or if you went into your coffers and say, well, look, we're going to give you 100 lunches, go to Montgomery Mall, pick up 20 people there, go over to West Side Skills Center, pick up 20 people there. We got 4 or 5 buses, bring them down, operating under the state central committee guys, and let them know that this is what your vote is for. This is how powerful your vote is, because this is where it all goes down. That would be something different, but they're not doing that. They don't even come to meetings because they're busy.
Monica, please.
How about
Monica,
that?
please don't bring up chicken boxes and buses. You can get us off guard.
2016.
But and those guys are really busy.
Chicken box steak.
They are busy. They're busy, and it's hard for them to be able to put their energy and focus on a state central committee like we need it. We need people who are committed to doing this thing.
So I guess both.
Okay, I have one last question. I have one last question for you and for Madam Acting
Just
Chair.
one more. That's it, brother. No more.
One last one, and this is the big one for me.
The big one.
Will you support a bylaws change so that Baltimore City conducts vacancy elections like every other jurisdiction,
You took my
and
question.
the entire body votes on who should be the next senator or who should be the next delegate if there's a vacancy? Because currently at this point, there are only 7 people that are eligible to install a state senator for what could be as long as 3.5 or 4 years, because we don't have any special elections. And then we don't have any rules against nepotism, so it could be a man and his wife and their daughter sitting on a central committee, and that's 3 of the 7 votes that their cousin needs to be a senator for 4 years.
Stop hating on the Welch family. Stop hating on the Welch
County
family.
and Montgomery County and every other civilized jurisdiction in the state throws it out to the entire jurisdiction is because there are more votes, there are more interests, there are more people. At this point, all I need to do is get 4 people to say yes, and I can be a senator for 4 years. And in fact, if there's more than that, I mean, look at the 41st when Jill Carter was appointed to fulfill Nat Oaks' seat. That vote was 1-to-1 with 1 abstention for 5 successive ballots. And what happened was, at the end of the day, they had to send it to the governor with 2 names. I mean, when is Baltimore City, and I've asked Ben about this, I've asked everyone about this, why haven't
I
we
certainly
changed
would
that?
like
And
to
the
answer it.
seems to be, that's how we've always done it.
I would
Isn't it
certainly
fair?
love to answer that.
Yes.
You ready?
Yes.
Good. Well, the first thing I would say is that I would be for adding to the bylaws recusal of people who are related, that they would recuse themselves from that vote. But under no circumstances would I ever vote to throw out what's happening in the 40th district to somebody in the 45th.
Hallelujah.
You cannot vote for any senator in my community. You can only vote for what's happening in your district. I don't want somebody from Roland Park, Canton, Federal Hill voting for who I want to vote for in West Baltimore. So no, under no circumstance would I ever vote for or support putting that vote out to the entire body. But what I would do is I would say that if they're married, related in any kind of way, that person will have to abstain from the vote. But nobody is voting for who I want running for me in Sandtown. In the 40th district, I get a chance to vote on that. And I would go to the people because the people put me there and they obviously trust me enough to be there. But I wouldn't want somebody from some other district voting on my senator. That's my senator, not yours. The work that they're doing for the 40th, not for the 45th. It's even irrelevant because whatever they do pretty much is going to affect the 40th, not the 43rd, the 45th, or the 41st. So I would never support that.
So given the high rate
right,
of
let Karenthia. Hold on. Let Karenthia speak.
And someone votes 1-0, they got a senator, right?
Well, that's how it rolls. Karenthia,
Okay.
what's your
Mark, it's
Karenthia.
okay. It's difficult to compare Baltimore City to other jurisdictions and how they operate. One, we have 42 plus members. The others have much smaller numbers, so they have a more intimate relationships cross districts. I would.
Prince George's County.
They don't have as many as we do, but I would rather see a special election to replace those vacancies, because just looking across the landscape in our central committee now, and if a district opening occurred and it went out to the full central committee, I would have to agree with Monica. I wouldn't be comfortable with that. All politics is local. I stay out of other district business. That's just kind of a political courtesy. So I don't think that would be a good idea for us to implement in Baltimore City.
Special election is not a bad idea, but I certainly wouldn't throw it out to the body.
Well, I mean, when Antonio and Barber went up against each other, there was a Welch, and there were two Welches of the 7 on the Central Committee. I don't even know how he wasn't appointed senator. He was halfway there. I mean, this can't be. There's got to be a better way to run a railroad. Maybe it's a special election or whatever. There's no reason why 7 people should decide who is a state senator for 4 years. That's not done anywhere else in the country. Except in Baltimore City.
Well, it's done in Baltimore City. And to repeat the question for Jarrell is, Mark asked the question: would the two young ladies, as chair or even just as a member of the body, support a bylaw change that would allow for any time a delegate or a senator resigns, retires, dies, or whatever in office, then it's up to the Central Committee to appoint that person to a new person to serve out the remainder of that term. Now, currently in Baltimore City, it goes to that district. So if it's the 43rd district delegate, that Central Committee, only the 7 elected members, not the
42
at large,
right,
would vote on who would replace that delegate. Well, he's asking, would you go bring that appointment to the entire body of all 42 members of the Central Committee?
As is done in every other jurisdiction, and in 41, part of the problem, elected members again.
But we're not everybody else, though, Mark.
And that's the past.
Everything. We're not everybody else. And they are, like Karenthia said, they're smaller.
Exceptionalism again, but it's a horrible image for. Do you realize that Nat Oakes was legally eligible to vote on his own successor and was one of 7? But
and most Central Committee people will vote and run for that appointment because they feel like I got an added advantage because I have my own vote. So I at least got one going in the door.
That's unconscionable, Hassan. In
Why?
a civilized democracy, that is unconscionable.
When you run for office, don't you have one vote for yourself?
Yep.
and your mama and your daddy, what's the difference? And see, I can see, and I'm with him. I can't see somebody from the 45th district telling the 43rd district who we should put in our delegate and senator spot. I'm sorry.
Yeah, maybe somebody that we don't get along with. It may be somebody that we don't want to represent us. So how are you going to tell us we want this person to represent you when it's the people in that district who should decide? They might not want the person that you appoint.
So here's a question I have. Based on, Karenthia, your answer about a special election, who would pay for the special election, and how do you see that happening? And the reason I say that is because, you know, you got the Democratic Party. You talked about fundraising. I mean, if you're trying to say, okay, we have a special election, is that something that maybe within your platform you're thinking about, well, we need to raise money just in case? And the reason I said I understand where Mark's coming from, because from an outsider looking in, when I saw what happened with the last vote, where I saw people that I thought were qualified candidates that were running, and you had 3 people, you know, from the same family, you know, one person, you automatically got 3 votes. And so you basically only needed 1 more vote. That didn't really, to me, smell that it was fair. I feel like a special election, yes, I'm down with the special election because it is the will of the people, where the people get to sit down and have the say. But my question is, with a special election, who's going to pay for this, and how would that actually happen? I know I'm probably putting you on the spot right now with something like that, but that's just kind of what I thought about.
And I think one of my priorities in terms of strategic partnerships might be an opportunity to develop some funds to help underwrite that. That I think that would be a coordinated effort between the city, the state, and the party. And I think between those, with trustees of the party, funders, labor, I think there's an opportunity to raise funds to support that effort.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking too, is that, you know, fundraising efforts would have that money available in the case that we need a fair election, special election.
Well, I mean, but let's be honest. Special elections are never paid for by a party or anything else. It's always paid for by the Board of Elections and the people. And honestly, that's a fair process. We don't have people dying every day or leaving office every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not as if we're going to be bombarded with special elections and it's going to cost so much money. You know, so I don't see why you won't just leave it up to the State Board of Elections.
And maybe you definitely do that. But I just feel like what they have right now, to me, it just really didn't make sense, because I just felt it was just, from the outside looking in, you feel like it's collusion. And then you really have to sit down and say, wow, if you already aren't part of the in crowd, then you don't have an opportunity or a chance. And is that what the people want? That's how I looked at it, as a person who was totally on the outside looking in, as a person at that point in time had never done anything political, had never run for anything, but just what I'm looking at it from my point of view, because it didn't smell right, because I remember it was the Welch, right? If I'm not mistaken.
So don't let Mark confuse it. It was 2 Welches.
Yeah, it was 2
Pete
Welches.
wasn't on there. It was his daughter and his mother.
And then I remember thinking,
the people elected them to the Central Committee.
And, you know, I totally understand it, but I was just like, wow, it's just 6, 7 people. Yeah. So basically, you know, it's just, I just felt, to me, because I knew, from my view looking in, I knew Antonio Hayes. I remember Nick Mosby was running, and I remember Senator Robinson, Barber Robinson. She was running, and to me, it was just like, wow, you only need to basically, if you got the Welches, you got 2. You right there.
But they still lost, though. They actually, I'm gonna tell you something. When it came down to it, when they went to put the delegate in, they wanted one of their own. And actually, Nick Mosby was the one who ended up winning, because their former chief of staff and close associate, Arlene Fisher, was the deciding vote. And instead of going with the Welch pick, she actually went with Nick Mosby. And it shocked the Welches, and they were pissed. I mean, they were pissed. And they came in with 2 votes. So you only needed 2 more. But this was after Catherine Pugh's pick. Gary, what's Gary's last name? Brown was indicted because of the $18,000, right? He had actually would got the first vote. Then they were trying to get one of theirs, and then and their whole person who would have gave him that third vote, and would have gave him the fourth and final vote because they had already got somebody else, ended up voting for Nick Mosby, and that's how we got Nick Mosby. And so it doesn't always work in their favor. They had the majority looking at from that perspective, 2 votes going in, and they still lost the vote. So, you know, to me, it's in politics, it's about counting the votes. As long as you can get to your number, it don't matter if it's your mama, your granddaddy, or your enemy. As long as you can count to the majority vote, you know, so be it. We got another call.
Yeah, and I think y'all chased Mark away. He's gone. Christopher Irvin, you there, sir?
No, Arlene didn't stay out of it. She voted. Huh? Go ahead.
Hey, what's up, brother? How you doing?
Oh, my main man.
Chris.
Oh, good evening, everybody. I wasn't sure when I came in.
Hey,
Good evening. Good evening.
So let me say that, you know, this show, you guys, you really make us think, and I really like this. I actually was in Mark's camp when he was, you know, leaning towards that people shouldn't be able to vote for themselves. But Hassan, you raised a valid point. In the voting process, you're able to vote that one vote. You're able to cast for yourself. But I think here's the difference, and this is where I lean more with Mark, not so much in the application, but in the intent. The intent of that body at that time is to fulfill, put a body in place. They serve as a body of people who are supposed to make a choice, not reflective of their will, but of the needs of the community. So I think there has to be some what Ivan, and you can attest to the spirit of the law. I think what is the spirit of their being in that position on that body at that time? And I don't think the spirit of that is to allow them to vote for themselves. While I understand exactly where Hassan is coming from, and that's what's kind of pulling me back in the other direction. I think if we think about the spirit of it, it is not for them to appoint themselves and make some of the end moves that we know goes on, but to really represent the interests of the people. And I think what would make that process the most transparent, or at least the most, it would allow for the most integrity of the process is if they couldn't vote for themselves, if that makes sense.
That does.
Suppose you end up, hey brother, how you doing? This is Monica. Suppose you end up with a tie. You have 7 people that can vote, so you got 3 and 3. Who would be the tiebreaker?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Monica. And I before I get off, please allow me to say something about Monica Cooper. I have to. But I think in that instance, so let's. You mentioned the 41st. Of course, I'm a resident of the 41st, and I paid attention to that process. There were people who abstained from their votes because of some of their political relationships and all kinds of other things. We saw basically every aspect of what could go wrong in the 41st. We saw it played out. I think when you take away something like the ability to vote for oneself, I think that's there's so many tangents that you kind of have to explore, but you can't explore all of them.
It just smells.
It
smells funny.
Chris,
I'm sorry?
when you spoke of people recusing themselves, that should never happen. Earlier, I spoke about education, training, helping people to understand why they were elected and what their role is. That's one of the most important mandates we have as State Central Committee members, to vote when there is a vacancy. So it's really unconscionable from my perspective that anybody would.
Coward.
That was the former councilwoman from the 5th Councilmatic District, Ricky Spector.
Not her, as well as Angela Gibson abstained at different times.
Yeah,
and
she
so
came
towards
in
that point, and thank you for that comment, because I agree. Isn't that why there's 7 people on the committee?
That's your job.
There's an odd number. I would think that there was an odd number chosen for a reason.
Yes.
Now, I do want to say this. So the mechanism is one that, even from their own bylaws, it states if the Central Committee really can't come up with a recommendation, they can send the name on to their party to have that party which would be under the control of Maya Rocky Moore Cummins now, that can actually submit a name from those considerations to the governor. All this goes to the governor. Now, mind you, the governor, even though he's Republican, has to choose of that party. So if it was a Democrat who died, resigned, whatever, they can't appoint a Republican. They have to report a Democrat. Now, mind you, before they changed the law, he could have appointed anybody. It didn't have to be the name that the Central Committee recommended to him. Now it is. And now they can submit more than one name, which then leaves that choice up to the governor. But, again, in their own bylaws, if they can't come up with a recommended name, they could have sent those names to their party chair. The party chair could have then took the recommendation of what they chose and then sent that on to the governor. They chose not to do it and sent two names over to the governor, and it was up to him to end up choosing. Then you kind of take yourself out of that process and leave it up to a Republican governor in this case, which didn't make too much sense of anything. But I still am of the case that, look, if I got to vote, I'm going to vote for myself. Now, that's just, especially if I'm not.
Look,
but here's another thing you can do. You can also ask them, if you want to run, you can recuse yourself, meaning you resign from the Central Committee and you're a candidate. And even if you win or you don't, you cannot come back to the Central Committee until you're reelected.
And see, I think that makes sense. I think that really makes sense. And then once you decide to recuse yourself, then the Central Committee then will be able to, I guess, replace you so you can still have those 7 votes and do it the proper way before they vote on the law
well, they couldn't replace you that quick, though.
I think there's also an avenue that we're leaving out. And again, this is just just give me a little latitude here to extend the conversation into the wish list zone. When there's an appointment to be made, I think a lot of times we leave out another position that is elected, and that's some of the community association presidents. And so when something like this comes up, let's say there's an appointment that has to be made, I don't see why there isn't some outreach to community association presidents to be there as a backup. So if there's a tie, why isn't their vote registered? I mean, they're elected, they're within the district. It just seems like the process was made in an insular fashion, so that some of this stuff that we hate could be put in. But again, because it's a process and we're all a part of it, we can take steps to change it, to how we want to see it.
Absolutely. And Jarrell, we've talked about this one here. Both of the candidates have agreed that they're not in support of it and that hopefully this will change soon. He's talking about Central Committee members being elected officials. They talked about not being in support of that, of elected officials serving on the State Central Committee as an elected official. Hopefully, but here's my thing concerned with that. Every time I've talked to Central Committee members, they keep saying, "Oh, son, I agree with you." I don't think they should, but it never changes.
Well, what you have to do is somebody have to put it out for a vote, and somebody has to second it, and then there you go. It takes off from there. And we, as a body, everybody just vote on it. Simple, like right then and there, we vote on it to say who are all in favor to say that after these 4 years that elected officials can no longer serve on the Central Committee, and we take that, yays or nays.
And this can be done through y'all body, right? It doesn't have to go to the state or the national.
No, that would be a bylaw.
So my question is, because I know there's a good majority of young people on the Central Committee who said this back when Ben got elected, that this was going to be a priority for them, that they were not going to have elected officials on the Central Committee, but y'all still haven't voted on it. And we're 6 months in now. So what y'all waiting for? After tomorrow night, I want to hear a vote.
Be the new chair.
Okay.
After tomorrow night, we're going to give the countdown.
Huh?
Chris still on the line. Ask me this.
Oh, okay.
Before you guys go on, can I say one more thing about Monica Cooper, please?
Oh boy! Don't believe him. But then again, maybe you should believe him.
No,
hey brother.
I want to say this is. And forgive me, I'm sorry, I didn't get the other guest's name. Forgive me for that. And the comments that I want to make about Monica Cooper are not, I know how election things are and voting, but this is just somebody that I admire. I'm in awe of, and I've watched her growth as somebody who comes from the same demographic that I come from, if you will. She has engaged in this process. She has educated herself on the processes, the people, and she has maintained her compass for doing for her people, the community, her different demographics, whether it's black people, whether it's women, whether it's the formerly incarcerated. And she is representing, not necessarily, and mind you, this is no campaign. I just really wanted to be a positive person about who she is. And I'm sure I know Alex Garcia is a great person. You know, whoever people decide, you know, that's everybody's choices. But I'm Monica. This is from me to you. I love you.
Oh, wow, love you too, bro.
I see you, and I am over the top, crazy, extra proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing and helping people as well as representing people.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you for calling in, Chris.
I just have one question.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Chris. I just have one question. No matter who wins, can we get an agreement that both you sisters will support and work with one another for the betterment of the organization? I know the answer already.
Absolutely.
I know the answer already, because I will tell you there was nothing but love and respect with this forum. And I really enjoyed it. I learned a great deal. So from an educational point of view, it was great. You know, I've had a great time just listening to you. I'd never met you before, Monica. It's great meeting you. Great seeing you again, Karenthia.
Good seeing you,
know,
as always.
So, you know, I just want to thank y'all for coming on.
Thank you.
And, you know, thank you, Hassan, putting this together, my brother.
Yeah. And I will say, at the end of the day, it's only one thing that I'm really concerned about, and that whether it's me or my sister, if it's my sister, she has me on speed dial day and night, because everything that I do it because, one, when I leave here, I want my reward. I want Peter Gabriel to be at the gate and say, hang it right, sister. So everything that I do is for something greater than this. So this stuff is but sport and play. That's what the book says. It goes by really fast, right? So while I am here, she would have 1,000% of my time, any and everything that I could do to help push us forward. Because again, I see the districts, and I come from one side of the district that's being ignored, and the other people on the other side of the district, they got it going on. They got the restaurants and the nice streets are clean and everything is jamming. So I'm in it for the people on this side of the district. Make no mistake about it. I wouldn't neglect anybody on this side of the street, but they look like they're doing all right to me. So my thing is for us to concentrate on all of the district, the whole district, so that it can look like it look over here. Let it look like it look over there. And I would support her and be there and doing the work and on the ground. So, yeah.
And I echo that. It's not about me. It's about the community. It's about the work. And like Monica, you know, in the mornings during my meditation, I ask God to let something I say or do be an inspiration, an encouragement, or motivation for someone that I encounter that day. And everything I do in my life, whether it's business, whether it's community service, whether it's my political life, it's all geared toward positively impacting the lives of others and leaving this place better than I found it. So we share that perspective, sis. And we will be partners in service, no matter what happens tomorrow night.
That's right.
Absolutely. And that y'all got to know, tomorrow night is the election.
It's going down, baby.
It's going down. 6 o'clock, 6:30.
6:30.
6:30.
Yeah, 6:30.
Over there
at Humana.
And it's open to the public, and it's a public vote, so you can see how folks are voting.
Oh, I'm gonna be there.
So you can see
right after the show.
So you can see which way this thing is going. So
you got Brother Thomas on the line. He's calling a little late here.
Yeah,
Brother Thomas.
He's a little late. We got to wrap it up.
Brother Thomas.
Ladies, I want to thank y'all for coming.
Brother Thomas.
An encouragement or motivation for someone that I encounter that day. And everything.
All right.
All right. He tried. Thank y'all for coming in. I wish both of y'all nothing but the best.
Thank you.
To the other two candidates, God bless you as well. Sorry you couldn't be here today, but we had a great time. I hope the people who are watching were educated on this program. If not, if you kind of missed it or only heard portions of it, you can go back and listen to it on DMVDaily.news 24/7, or you can go back on our Facebook page, our YouTube page, Periscope page, and watch it all over.
And sorry, Brother Thomas, you kind of called in a little bit late. I know we were running a little behind too, but Hassan, just to let the family know that if you have any questions or comments that you want to leave about any of the programs that you've heard of in the past, as well as programs today, we do have a voicemail system, so they can call in even after the show is over with and leave their questions or comments. Just do know that any questions or comments that you leave on the voicemail system may be used on a future DMV Daily radio show.
All right. So, as always, remember, new promise begins with a new day. Therefore, the promise of tomorrow is greater than that of yesterday.
Free Keith Davis.